Hey guys, and warm welcome back to the channel. Today we're painting moths and butterflies. I'm really excited. My name is Grace if you're new here, and this is the Rusty Thicket, my little watercolor and oddities small business. I am located in Okinawa, Japan, and for those of you who have been following for a while, you know I have been working on all of my fall release stuff. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're all fall themed, because I still want regular type items that people might want to purchase for, you know, the holidays coming up, for a friend who really loves springtime or whatever. Not only is it my aesthetic, it's just that as much as I love fall and Halloween, I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. So the little ghosties are ready, and I'm just working on a few more items that I wanted to have for my upcoming events. My first one is next weekend. I'm also updating all of the items that will be at my consignment location at the 𝍊🍼🍊🍊 gift corner. So if you guys are local, make sure you check that out. I'll have a couple of pieces out before the real deal drops at the Schilling Center, which is the community center here on base. I'm really excited to finally be getting into fall. I've really missed all of my friends and being with them at events since I didn't do any this summer because it's just too hot here. Unfortunately, it has been incredibly rainy. We've had a couple of typhoon misses here lately, and I wouldn't normally say that, you know, rain is unfortunate, but it is getting closer and closer to the events, and that is like the one big thing that always derails these, especially in the fall season, all these events, because I believe it's until November that we have still, you know, pretty frequent typhoon type storms or tropical storms that come through and just dump heavy amounts of rain and even worse wind on us. But it has been rainy and windy lately, and I've been really enjoying doing the art while that's going on, so maybe it'll ease up before we get into anything too specific. So far I have every single weekend booked in October and quite a few going on in November, with something very special coming up in November that I can't even tease yet other than just saying that. So make sure you guys are staying tuned, because I'm really excited about it, and I think it's going to be, it's going to be worth the wait for me. I hope it will be for all of my local pals who love stickers. I can say that much at least, I guess. But if you know, you know, which not very many people do yet. So like I said, just be excited. November's gonna bring some really cool stuff, and I'm hoping to get quite a bit of it on film so I can show you all the process that went into it and all that kind of thing. So this is a Luna moth. It's one of my absolute favorite moths. I have painted quite a few of them in the past. I've actually taught them in some classes. Unfortunately, they have a very short lifespan because they cannot eat anything with their mouths. They don't really have mouths, so they're basically on the earth to reproduce, and then they die, which is somehow sort of poetic, but here she is in all of her glory. I wanted these to be really simple because the frames are going to be kind of what stands out. These are just like little wooden frames I got from a friend before she left the island, and I didn't really know what to do with them, and they were awfully plain without any design, and I just thought it would be fun. So I took some Posca paint pens to those and did them up a little bit. I did try watercolor on one of them. You might be able to tell, just to see if any color would really show up, and it kind of didn't. So if I'm not mistaken, this one is called a Pink Lady. It's probably my favorite one as far as how they all turned out, just because I love the color combinations of like pinks and oranges and then greens, kind of like that sunsetty color with the greens I find very beautiful. I also love how on the edges of this moth, I believe, is really dark, really rich, because there's a lot of really great contrast in it. One thing I'd like to mention while I'm teaching my classes, I always explain to people that you can go darker with watercolor, but you can never go backwards and go lighter, so it's always best to start with your lightest colors first. And that's why you can see I can be a little bit messy with this green over some of those spots, because I'm going to come back in with a much darker color to cover that up in the future anyway. And sometimes it's nice to get that paint down on the paper and you're not working with such like stark white. You know, it doesn't always work for everything. Obviously, you want to keep things as white as you can until you've painted it, if it's going to change like the tone of things. But in this case, it's just going to be a darker green, so that's going to be fine. Plus, with moths and butterflies, you can kind of tell when they've got some of those more ombre colors that they really have a beautiful fade in between them. They very rarely have really harsh lines of color unless it's, from what I've noticed, very contrasty anyway. Like we have these beautiful black butterflies here with a blue kind of section or stripe through them. I want to say it's like bottle blue something. I can't remember. I'm taking lots of videos of things so that I can research them and do some videos on them later. I would like to add a lot more education into the channel. I'm hoping in January that we can kind of work a little bit more towards that, because I myself want to learn more about what I'm painting, because I love bugs, if y'all couldn't tell. This is where I'm going to add in this kind of reddish pink color and do a really beautiful blend. This is kind of sort of wet on wet. I'm just doing a really overly wet paintbrush, and that's going to help me blend these together. The paper itself, it does start out dry first until I bleed it over into that orange that I've already painted. Again, here you can see I'm painting over that kind of zigzaggy shape because it's going to be a much darker color, which we're starting to paint right now. This was my favorite part. I really love these skinny, crisp lines that you can get after things start to dry and nothing is bleeding in anymore. And adding in the contrast always seems to make it feel a lot more just three-dimensional, has a lot more depth to it when things are all the same tone or all the same flat color. These do have an interesting little white patch up above this spot, and instead of going back in with my white pen, I just decided to leave it the white of the paper, and I think it turned out really nice. I also believe this is my favorite frame. If I'm not mistaken, I'll have to wait for the video to go forward since I'm watching this back as I'm doing my voiceover today. There's just something so pleasing to watch the lines fill in. I know I'll watch a lot of that kind of stuff on TikTok where people color in different shapes and things with really nice markers, and it just kind of itches the brain just right. Alright, as we're finishing this one up, putting in some detail lines of the wings and things, I start to kind of notice how complex the wings are, and sometimes I wonder if I put in too much detail or if not enough. Because I used to really want my stuff to be hyper realistic, but now I kind of have like this painterly, illustratory style to them. So let me know in the comment section down below if you like your stuff, you know, more children's book or more realistic. But there's the frame, and I thought it turned out really cute. The colors match great. So I really love the earthy tones of this butterfly. I'm not really sure what it is either. I was just kind of Googling different color schemes to match the frames that I had already made. This one's going to go in a green one, I think, because I have some blues coming up that I really loved. I don't very often paint with blue, so I felt like maybe that would be a nice contrast to some of the more Halloween stuff that I have coming out. But this one's really pretty with some browns and some tans and things. On this section right here, this is actually a white area with some kind of gray to show the different variations in the light that plays out on its wings. So that's what that gray is for. It'll kind of make a little bit more sense later on when I add some more detail to that. I really loved this rich brown color on the edges. This butterfly is very similar to a monarch in some ways with all these little white spots, so I'll add some more of those here in just a minute too with my jelly roll pen. And then it had like this really beautiful kind of more reddish brown tone that outlined the darker color with that kind of golden color, and it had some of that kind of running through the veins of its wings. It's very pretty. It's very interesting to be in a place like Okinawa because it's year-round. You know, you don't really get 4 seasons. It kind of cools off in November, maybe about through May. So flowers, trees, all kinds of stuff bloom all throughout the year. I'm pretty sure the tree out in front of our house has like 2 cycles where it drops its leaves and it starts new twice a year. And then, you know, all the bugs and things are always out. We pretty much, I think the only thing I've noticed that really truly leaves in the cooler months are the house geckos. I'd love to know where those little guys go because there are so many of them hanging around our house. We have like a big stairwell, and that's where all the bugs come with the lights and stuff, and they do very well there. They're nice and chunky. I did paint a few geckos actually for the fall season too. I've had a couple of requests for those. But here I am just finishing up these little white spots. I love using the jelly roll for small details like this. You could go ahead and use masking fluid or something, but I like doing it after. That's why I always include it in one of my little travel bags for when I'm doing watercolor. And here we are putting it in the frame. This frame gave me a few issues, but we got it figured out in the end. And I think it turned out pretty cute. Some little flowers on it, make it a bit more interesting because this is a bit more of a plain moth. Alright, so now we're going to move into some blues. I don't do a ton of blue unless it's background or something. I really love my lighter, more like transparent blues, which is what we start out with this, but it gets a lot darker, you know, for like backgrounds and things. But otherwise, I'm pretty much stuck with my jewel tones. I really love my greens and my oranges and my you know, autumn type colors and whatnot. This butterfly was very beautiful because it had this really vibrant center that kind of faded out into some darker spots, but the wing itself was lighter. I just thought it would be a lot of fun to paint, and it was. Do you guys have a favorite moth or favorite butterfly? I would actually love to know that. Tell me maybe where you are in the world and your favorite one, where you're at, down in the comment section below. Back home, I have, like, where I'm actually from is North Carolina. I say I'm from Tennessee because I lived there for the longest, especially as an adult, and I kind of claim Tennessee when it's just like normal conversation, but truly I'm from the Appalachian Mountains in North Carolina, and we have really it's a famous caterpillar, but the moth itself is called the Isabella tiger moth, and the caterpillar that turns into that moth is a woolly bear, or a woolly worm as we call them, and have a very big festival for every year in October, usually the third weekend in October. One of my biggest dreams is to do this event as a crafter, and I would love to take some woolly worm type items, stickers and paintings and whatnot, one day when we get back to the States. So that's another one of my favorites besides the Luna moth. For this painting, I decided for some of the gold accents that you'll see in a minute that I'm going to use another Jelly Roll pen. It is a glitter pen. I did this for two reasons. The yellows that I have are beautiful in this palette, but they really just didn't speak to me the way I wanted this to look. And it was giving blue and white pottery, and I really wanted that gold to be truly gold. And I don't have any gold actual watercolor right now. I have a palette, but it's not a real gold. It's like a kind of a bronzy color. And I just really loved the way this pen worked with these blues, and I thought it was gorgeous. It shows up a bit darker here on the camera than it does in person, especially with the light. And then I'm just adding some final details before I put it in its frame. Painting up underneath that wing so that it looks three-dimensional, like it's being laid on top of the other one. I really love how this one turned out with its frame. Gorgeous. I can't wait to see what people think about them. I've not really ever done anything quite like this before. I've painted wood and I've done watercolors, but I've rarely had the opportunity to put them together. I'll probably not do a ton of acrylic stuff when I get back to the States, just because watercolor is my true love, and I tend to do it here to keep myself occupied in between doing paintings, because there's really only so many one-off items I can muster, and keeping it interesting and changed up on me helps my sanity a little bit. But people also love it, so, you know, if I have the opportunity to make items people are really excited for, that's part of it for me. I like to know that the artwork on the items are just as exciting as, you know, having new things in the shop to begin with. I also loved this blue butterfly because of its center dark portion also. The photo I have of it that I'm using for a reference is beautiful. It has kind of a little bit of a blue morpho butterfly sheen to it, but obviously for painting purposes without any metallic paints, it still turned out very, very pretty. But Maybe one day I'll paint it all shiny. And here they all are in their beautiful frames. I painted a couple more off screen, but I just really love the process. They turned out great, and I cannot wait for everybody to see them at the shops, which will be next week. So I'll see you guys then. Bye-bye.